Wait for it, and we're live. Hey, all you crazy sci-fi and fantasy fans. It's time for your daily dose of shenanigans over here at the Blasters and Blades podcast. Just a couple of nerdy veterans and one chaos coordinator geeking out over our science fiction passions and fantastical fantasies. A place where magic is king, the sky is the limit, and space is the place. We are the podcast that puts the fun in dysfunction. So without further ado, before we go, we wanted to make note that one of the guests supposed to be here today, Matthew Bowman, is not able to make it. His wife was in a serious accident. We did leave his social media stuff in the contact, so if you want to go support the family and buy good books, his wife Lori writes some amazing stuff too. I'll throw that all in there. She seems to be recovering, but obviously family takes priority. I only mention it because if you feel like buying some good books, the two of them write some amazing stuff, and that's one way you could support them in their time of need. And with that, we're going to let our guests introduce themselves. So we're going to start with James JE Pittman.
Hey, guys. I want to second the shout out to Matt and his wife. They're good people. Go give them a helping hand if you can. But I'm James Pittman, JE Pittman. I write the Felix Chance Urban Fantasy series and also the Pandora Squad Mill Sci-Fi series. You can find me at halfacrepond.com. And I'm just super excited about Stargate. It's one of those franchises that's been near and dear to my heart since it started, really.
Absolutely. All right, next we have Mr. Michael Morton.
Hello, everyone. Michael Morton. I write military sci-fi, fantasy. I've written in the Fallen Empires universe for Canon Publishing, and then the Four Horsemen universe under CKP Publishing. Currently working on a Car Wars trilogy under Three Ravens. I am a huge fan, as you can see, of Stargate. I have been, just like James, ever since it came out. And looking forward to talking about all things Stargate related.
Oh, freaking standing in last, but certainly not least, we have the one, the only, Mr. Terry Mixon.
Hi there. Terry Mixon. I write science fiction. Last Hunter series with Variant Publishing, military sci-fi. Empire of Bones, also military sci-fi adjacent space opera. I've loved Stargate from the very beginning as well, except for Universe. It sucks.
We're going to have to agree to disagree on that one. And so if you like the Battlestar Galactica thing, his Last Hunter series takes that and adds the anime level of awesome overdone on top of it. And the Empire of Bones, although if he talks to you about that series, the Empire of Bones, just know that he is wrong about the main character. He might have written it, but he just doesn't understand the way us readers do who the main character is. All right. And
yeah, I've been wrong about so many things in the past. It wouldn't shock me.
Both of them are good series. And the Empire of Bones, if you like audio, Veronica Jaguar, I actually maybe pronounced it correctly this time.
You did pronounce it right.
She does an amazing job. And if she read the phone book, we'd probably listen. So
true enough.
She's good. She's all right for a soulless ginger. What can we say? And,
she's not a soulless ginger. She's got dark hair.
Yes, but she's married to one, and so she's like soulless.
So she's soulless ginger adjacent.
Yes, and that's almost as bad, I'm told. I don't know for sure, but more research
like
is
dark ginger would be more soulless. Like it.
A dark ginger. That sounds like a series right there.
Yeah. I'm claiming it, though. You said it, but I'm claiming it. That's a comic book right there. The Adventures of Dark
That's
Ginger.
one of Terry's superpowers on his own podcast. It's designed instead of like ours for readers and listeners. His is geared to talking to other writers. And his superpower is he will give them more ideas than they know what to do with, just to mess with them when they're like, hey, what should I do? And he throws out all the weird and the wacky just to confound them.
I'm the same way. Brainstorming is my superpower.
Terry looks like a GQ Santa Claus, so obviously he's got a sack full of good ideas.
Ho, 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 bitches.
All right, and so
you can keep that one, Terry. You can keep that one. That's
if we do another Santa as a badass anthology, that might be the title. Ho, 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 bitches. Amazon will let us get away with that.
Season's greetings, bitches.
Or we go Samuel Jackson. It was like Steve just greets motherfucker.
Yes.
Anyway,
say ho 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 again.
I like that one too. All right, so the next part of the introduction.
Don't get me started, boys. Don't get me started.
Is the religion question. And since they've all been on and they've answered multiple variants, we're just going to stick to the important one. This will be airing as fall hits us. So, what is your fall caffeinated beverage of choice?
Coffee, obviously. What the fuck?
What kind? I mean, some people put flavors and shit in it.
Flavors? You're lucky I put sugar in it.
You've got enough sugar in your Tang. We're good. So, what about you, James? Your seasonal beverage of choice.
For relaxing time, make it Suntory time.
Okay.
Otherwise, tea.
Do you do vodkas too?
I'm not huge into vodkas. Whiskeys and gins mostly.
The Rock just made his own vodka line that I saw commercials for yesterday. It'll be interesting to see.
Tequila line, huh?
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
Big. I'm not going to tell him he's wrong because he's really big.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, you're buying it because of his name, but will it be good? That's another story.
I don't know.
Well, didn't Ryan Reynolds have vodka
Gin.
as well?
Oh, he's got
Gin.
No, he's
There
got
you go.
gin. Aviation. Yeah, it's really good. I just got the Deadpool bottle.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's I was going to keep it sealed, but then I ran out of other booze, so I popped that open. And I was like,
So you just get another one to keep sealed.
Or you just reseal it when it's empty.
Put some water in it, reseal it, golden.
yeah, I'm with Terry on that one because I had the exact same idea. I will just refill it with water, seal it, put it on the shelf
for display purposes.
No one will know the difference.
I actually brought home. This is funny for you, Nick. I brought home one of the Iraqi Diet Cokes when I came home from overseas, and I set it on my display. I was never going to open it. It was just there. It's one of the weird peel tab ones, if you remember. And when my oldest was 10, he decided he wanted to see what it tastes like, and he chugged this like decade-old Diet Coke. And because
you don't get to do that.
Yeah, he didn't die, so I mean, it's not a bad thing. Because he lived.
If it was a rip it, he'd be dead right now. We'd be
but so we ended up, because I didn't want to throw the can away, we filled it with wax. We just kept melting wax until it filled to keep the shape. You could do that too if you're worried about it. I don't know how sturdy the bottle is, but it's definitely display worthy. All right, Michael, you get to tell us what's your seasonal caffeinated beverage of choice.
Just to be different, rather than saying coffee or tea, I'll go with an Alpine.
Okay.
If you're not familiar with that, is hot chocolate and peppermint schnapps with a little bit of whipped cream.
All righty then.
Do you mix up the types of schnapps in there, or is it always just the peppermint?
I suppose you could, if you have a different flavor, but peppermint goes really well with hot chocolate.
Fair. Does it dull the kick, or do you still get that pleasant burning sensation?
The burning is there, but it's muted. It's in the background. I guess it depends on what kind of hot chocolate you're using. If you're just using like the regular powder stuff, then it's not muted as much. But if you do the old-fashioned way where you make your hot chocolate with milk, then you get that richer chocolate flavor, and the peppermint or the burn from the schnapps kind of fades into the background.
JR, after last year, I'm surprised to hear you mentioning burning sensations again.
Look, you signed the NDA. You said you wouldn't tell anybody. That was in confidence that I told you that. Okay, now that we've totally burned the Safe for Work label and we just threw that down the crap chute, we're gonna just dive right in. So obviously,
there you go.
If you read the title, we're here to talk about Stargate. So we're going to start with, what does everyone love about the franchise? Or do we need to say what Stargate is? You think everyone knows?
They can look it up.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, if they clicked on the link, they know what it is.
Google them shits.
Okay, so what does everyone love about the franchise?
I love the fact
when it came out.
Go ahead.
I was just saying, I love the fact that it was it was a unique form of travel. I mean, the only other one I could think of is the old 50 series, the Time Tunnel. So it was a unique form of travel, and it really lent itself. It was a good movie, but it really lent itself to the episodic TV, where they could go to a different planet every episode and encounter something different. But it was still pretty unique and probably one of the best special effects at the time.
Yeah.
Optimism. I loved its optimism.
That explains why you didn't like SGU, because it was darker.
That's exactly right.
Okay. What about you, James? What was it about Stargate that you loved?
It was a unique take on things. It wasn't just a crew out in space encountering new worlds. They actually wove in. What I really liked about it was the weaving of the science fiction, the space opera elements with like Earth mythology and history too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It took a, kind of a standard premise, alien of the week, and rooted it in with like the conspiracy theories and the history, and it felt much more creative as far as like being close to reality and like just taking it and twisting it, which I love things that are slightly plausible but completely not at the same time. So I really liked how it just really leaned into that and just started exploring the galaxy by jumping through a wormhole and, see Richard D. Anderson going out and being a whole hog gun guy in place of MacGyver.
Yeah. And the cast dynamics were amazing after about season 2, right? And they all kind of found their footings. The writers found out how they were going to portray them. It was less than military, right? But it was just great about how all the characters interacted together.
So what is it about it that you loved, Nick?
I'm a fan of the movie. That was my introduction. When it came out in 1994, I was end of my sophomore year, going to my junior year of high school. I'm dating myself. I'm a young guy. I get it. But I liked it for multiple reasons. One of them, the military aspect to it. 2, the form of travel, like Michael brought up. The gateway, a portal to go across the
wherever
universe.
you wanted to go.
Wherever you wanted to go, which we found out in the TV series. Now, I've only watched like a handful of the shows, like episodes, and I thought they were really well done. And I thought it really ended the lore of what was created in the movie. But I really liked that idea, and I liked how it was it was worldly, but it also had a connection to our own humanity, our own origins, which was the point, because we were slaves, in the movie. I don't know. It was really captivating. It was something that we hadn't seen in sci-fi either. We hadn't seen it in a very long time, like Michael brought up the time tunnel, so like there's been similar type shows and movies, but nothing that was quite as in depth as Stargate was.
Yeah, I actually liked partly that it was hopeful in the beginning when I first found everything. As a history nerd, I liked all the ties into like ancient history. They played with the tropes that all the ancient gods were aliens, and then the little green men was a race of aliens. Like, it didn't take itself so seriously with some of that stuff, which I liked. And I really did enjoy like exploring through the wormhole. You got to meet like all these crazy weird civilizations and see variants of what might be, which is kind of what's part of the fun with classic sci-fi is the exploration of culture and what it means to be human. And you do that through. My only real complaint was the lack of genetic diversity at each site. They would need more people to ensure no inbreeding, but obviously budgets are a thing.
Yeah.
So that's why the populations were always so small. But yeah, that's what I actually loved about it. So Nick mentioned he found it through the movie, and I actually watched the original movie at the Cinema Cafe, which is like the see it again kind of movie theater where it's right after it goes out of the main movie theater, it goes there, and you could like they have a restaurant as you watch it. So I went there with my dad when it was in theater, the year it was out. But when did everyone else find the IP?
I found it through the movie when I saw it in the theaters when it came out. Me and my best friend went to see it, and we just loved it. I mean, Kurt Russell. I mean, that was the first draw, was Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
And then when you look at the concept, and one of the things I just looked up, Star Trek Next Generation was going on during that time, and I think part of what drew us was the military aspect. It was certainly more action oriented, more military than Next Generation was, and I think we were looking for that difference, and it really made a difference in how we enjoyed it, because it was still the same concept, right? You go to an alien planet, you meet alien life. Only in this case, you blow up their ship and detonate a nuke on the other side of the portal, or at least that's what they said they did.
So that was actually part of the fun of it. I liked that. The one thing that I really enjoyed that they don't always do when they take a movie and they make it a series is they didn't ignore the original movie when they did the beginning of the series. All that happened there actually happened. I mean, they switched out actors, obviously, but they didn't say none of this happened when they brought it to TV. They took that premise and then they just took it forward. Okay, now what happens when they get back? Which I really enjoyed, because too often you see where Hollywood just seems to hate the source materials of whatever they're doing, and they just want to do something completely different, either to put their own spin on it so they can make a name for themselves, or budgets, whatever the reason. They seem to not have done that with this. They didn't take themselves too seriously, but they didn't shit on what came first.
No, they actually made a joke about it, about the fact that Colonel O'Neill was not the same O'Neill that was in the movie that went through initially. He Richard Dean Anderson's character makes a joke, and I forget what season it was, but he says, he's given his name to a reporter or somebody. It's O'Neill with 2 L's. The other guy has 1 L, and he's got no sense of humor, which is he's describing Kurt Russell's character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We also learned that the galaxy is filled with planets that look like Canada. That's also useful.
Yes.
Vancouver is out there.
All in the Vancouver area. Everything looks like Vancouver, Canada.
So if you're ever out there and you see them,
you need to have something that's common.
Yeah. Was there a favorite of one of the series? They had SGU, they had Stargate Atlantis, SG-1, and I think there was a short Gate series that came out on their website.
It was a web series, but they also had a couple of a made-for-movie TV thing and a cartoon thing. They had a couple of movies that were straight to DVD sort of stuff.
Continuum. What was the other one? The one that finished off the Ori saga.
Yeah.
No, I first came across it. I saw the movie first, but I really, really fell in love with it. Late night syndication. Because it would be that thing on UPN network I got on my little bitty TV in my room when I should have been asleep at like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. And they would put episodes on back to back. Like it would be like that, and then like Star Trek TNG and whatever else Paramount had that they could put out there.
Yeah.
So I really started watching it then. And then when I got into college, Sci-Fi would do the marathons, where they just played Stargate all day on like Tuesdays or whatever. So I actually got to see like all the episodes.
And I have it on Authority. One of the friends of the show, Krista Note, who's an author in his own right, has been to the base where it happens, and they actually put a Gate Command Center patch on one of the latrines.
It's a closet. It's a coat closet. Yeah, it says.
It is. I thought he said it was a latrine.
Yeah.
I like that the Air Force had a sense of humor about it. I imagine that was good for their recruiting, but I wonder who showed up at the recruiting office like, I want to join the SG team. It's got to happen at least once.
Oh, yeah.
So, did you guys watch the entirety of, obviously Nick only watched the movie, but did the rest of you catch all the series, or was there one that you preferred?
All of it.
Oh, yeah.
Watched it all, everything.
From start to finish, even the cartoon.
Multiple times.
I didn't know there was a cartoon.
I don't think that I've actually seen the cartoon, but I've seen the rest of it.
Or Infinity or something like that. It was kind of a more futuristic, more scientifically enhanced team that went through. And kind of like what Atlantis and Universe tried to do, as opposed to the original SG-1. So it was interesting. It was an interesting take on it. I only saw that when it was airing. I haven't watched it since then, but it exists, and it was pretty decent.
Maybe I know one day they'll come back with a new series.
They keep promising and teasing us. I know the Atlantis, it wasn't that they were super enhanced. It was literally just the locals from that Pegasus galaxy.
Yeah.
And so it was just, cultural divergence and genetic divergence. And then you had with SGU, it was just everybody jumping through the gate after an attack at the last minute. So just whoever happened to be unlucky enough to go through the gate after it glitched and didn't send them home.
Yep.
So
Atlantis, you got Jason Momoa. That's got to be worth something, right?
Absolutely. And that was where he was first discovered, right?
That was where he was first.
I don't know if he was in anything before that, but that's the first place I ever saw him.
I think he did like a Hercules around that time and some other movies like that. But, Atlantis was like his first actual big role.
Okay. So do you guys have a favorite character in the franchise?
No, it's an ensemble. Like Michael was saying, the cast dynamic between everybody, and that's one thing I read in a interview with Richard Dean Anderson. He said he wasn't going to do it if he was going to be the quote unquote face. He wanted to like play the background comic relief almost. He wanted to have that ensemble cast that he could bounce off of and, not be about him the entire time. So, we had, some Samantha Carter, Daniel Jackson really shown. Teal'c was an amazing character.
Indeed.
It was really just like the whole, hell, Hammond of Texas. Rarely do you get the commander of the base involved at that level where he is known across the universe as a great warrior.
Yeah, I did like the relationship between Samantha Carter, Amanda Tapping, and MacGyver, because he'll always be MacGyver to me. Yeah, some of the outtakes, some of those jokes about MacGyver in some of those episodes, those were not in the script. That was Amanda Carter or Amanda Tapping just messing with him. And they thought it was so funny because they were just riffing off and back and forth. They thought they were going to end up cutting it. So they just let loose thinking they were going to do a retake. And the producers were like, no, we're leaving that in.
Yeah, that's making it.
And so it's rare that kind of ad hoc sort of ad-libbing happens.
I disagree with that. I bet it happens a lot.
Well, I've only ever heard them admit it one other time.
It was that instance was just very overt.
Okay.
That being said, if I'm in a mood for something that's just quirky, off the wall or whatever, and I got free time, I'll go on YouTube and I'll look up those fan-made videos of Jack O'Neill's favorite lines or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. They've got like 5 or 6 different versions of him because he's just, he's got the best reactions to anything, right? Nothing phases the guy.
That just really shows in one of my favorite episodes. I can never remember the name of it, but it was voted like the 7th most popular episode of all time. It's the time loop episode.
Yeah.
Because that is the one I think that does time loops the best of any sci-fi show, period. But just the line where he and Teal'c are
on my backswing,
in the middle of my backswing. It was,
or that and when he's using the mustard and ketchup to make the unhappy face.
and when Teal'c just goes, "You are not the only one who has an unpleasant start to this," and it just cuts to the montage door slamming him in the face over and over again. And it's one of those shows where it's very serious, but at the same time doesn't take itself super seriously and allows itself to have that humor shine through in a more organic way than a lot of them really just kind of shoehorn it in.
Yeah,
that's one of the things I think makes it great.
Yeah, one of my favorite scenes, other than when they're the time loop thing, is after not Carter, the other scientist guy,
McKay.
Yeah, no.
Jackson.
Daniel Jackson.
Why am I blanking on this? When Daniel dies and then he comes back as an ascended.
Yeah.
And he comes back and he appears to Jack in the elevator. And he's trying to get Jack to, hey, there's a big world-ending thing coming up. And all Jack is he's like, you're my best friend, and I haven't seen you in forever. And you don't even say hi to me. You just want to walk right into the world-saving thing. How about we talk a little bit first? I thought that was
humanizing,
and it was different, right? In any other series, everyone would have gotten super serious, and they would have launched into, okay, how are we going to save the world yet again? But no, this was, hey, look. This is as close to as emotional as Jack O'Neill is going to get, and we get to see a private little scene.
No, you see where he's the general.
You see the scene where he gets emotional, where the alien comes and assumes the body of his dead son, and that backstory adds depth. Like if you haven't seen it or you missed that part, his son finds his pistol and accidentally kills himself with his weapon, which is why he had originally gotten out of the Air Force and why he was divorced, because the loss of the child sort of just drove them apart and they went nuts. And they handled that really well, where you ended up feeling for everyone involved, and it sort of added layers to what they had already built with O'Neill, which I actually really liked. I liked how they did that. So I would say that was the most in-depth emotion you get from him. on that scene. Did anyone else watch those episodes? Did you catch the ones I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I thought
to a point I was thinking about, like, you think after 10 seasons they would run out of material for that kind of depth, but they stuck through that till the very end. Even in the movies, you never lost that depth.
Yeah. And like I said, that's where, it comes from writers that actually like the source material. So they tried to honor it.
Yep.
And I imagine they had somebody doing continuity stuff behind the scenes, because you didn't see any of those slip ups where they, although if it comes to favorite episodes, mine is the one where they're trying to spin because the reporter's onto them. So then they release it as a fake sitcom. So everyone thinks that the reporter's nuts, or it's a publicity thing. And then, like, they're making fun of themselves through this whole process of that episode, which was hilarious.
That and the puppet episode.
The puppet episode, I don't remember that one.
There was I forget exactly what happened, but everyone was marionettes.
It was one of those trippy ancient things, I think.
I don't know.
It was like in their heads or something, but
yeah, it was just one of those things. It's like, okay, you know what? Suspension of disbelief out the window. Let's just sit down and watch this because it was funny as hell.
Well, with the suspension of disbelief, you mentioned the time loop thing they did. They also did one where they actually went back in time to the 60s and see Tilk with his, like, straight-faced, no sense of humor personality trying to be a hippie, and all with all the actual, like, stoners, like, chill, man, your vibes. It was hilarious.
Yeah, which is funny because he was the most vibe-oriented one.
Yeah.
He was all about the Kelnareem and the meditation and the inner peace with the symbiote stuff. And I'm like,
I mean, he was still away from a hippie himself culturally. So, all right,
go ahead.
I was going to say, we're going to play that commercial, and then we're going to jump right into talking about this franchise that we all know and love. And there's probably thousands of potential offshoot episodes, but for another time. First, we're going to play that commercial.
Southside thief Kai Fletcher thought he could go straight until he couldn't. And when his last job goes wrong, he finds himself stowed away in a starship belonging to an alien crime syndicate. Forced into servitude to pay for his passage off-world, Kai makes a deal. He helps them rob the most powerful alien empire in known space, and he gets to go home. Easy peasy. Until it isn't. Planning the heist, Kai discovers the Empire has stolen ancient alien technology that threatens all other sentient species. He's never been a good guy, but even he has limits. Hunted by both the Empire and the Syndicate, he manages to get on the wrong side of everyone in the galaxy who wants the discovery for themselves. Kai just wanted to get back to Chicago, but instead, he's become the galaxy's most wanted with his sci-fi thrill ride from Michael LaVoice and Athon Hooks. Available at Amazon.com and Audible.
All right. Thank you for sticking with us through that commercial interlude. And now we're going to dive right back through the gate and talk about Stargate. So did you guys read any of the graphic novels that came through this one?
No.
Yep.
Only the one for the universe, so I could wrap up that storyline.
Yeah, I was really bitter. They're like, we promise we'll give you an ending with the graphic novel, and that was a cliffhanger too.
Yep.
The covers were horrible. Like, I saw them in my local comic book shop, and I'm like,
I still paid $40 and bought it on launch day, a hardcover.
oh my god,
Wow.
you're more devout than I am. But then again, I've bought some really stupid shit.
I kind of wanted to. Yeah, I kind of wanted to see how it ended because I got really invested. I liked the gritty nature of SGU where they actually counted bullets. They ran out of bullets. They policed the dead for shit because if you don't know when you're getting a resupply, you don't leave Billy with his gear. He doesn't need it anymore. He's dead. You take a shit.
No, you go into scavenger mode like in Call of Duty.
Right, and they didn't do any of that. So I like that grittier nature, but I can see having watched Battlestar Galactica after I watched the SGU, I can see the comparison. I can see people that like the campy, upbeat, optimistic nature of the originals, that tonal shift. I can see why it would bug people, but I really dug what they were doing with SGU, and I just wish they had given them more time. I like that puzzle. We got Eli there. That was like shades of Last Starfighter. Like if you solve the puzzle, you get invited in.
By the way, Eli's fucking cool.
He was. He was like the proto nerd everybody wants to be because he was like freaking genius.
Got to give a shout out to my boy David, played Eli.
Okay, do you know him?
Yeah, David Blue did my audiobook for Felix.
Oh, cool. He was a good actor. I thought he did a solid job. The only thing that got a little trippy with that one were the ancient communication stones where they like would switch bodies, but then it would be confusing.
And then while they're switching bodies, they're having sex with people.
Yeah,
that's
so, like,
not strange at all.
With his wife, and I'm like, because his wife still sees the other guy. Like, that's a little weird. It was definitely interesting.
My wife's getting pregnant. I wish I could be there, but at least you're there.
And it's not his genetically, even though he was the one there for the deed. So that gets even weirder on birth certificates. You know, what are you going to do? If you guys could write in that franchise, because all of us here are creatives, would you take the opportunity? And if so, what part of the universe would you play in?
Atlantis, definitely. I feel like there's a whole lot of stuff going on out there that could have still been dealt with.
Like the Wraith question was a lot of fun. I think they could have explored.
Yep, indeedy.
I'd do SG1 universe, but one of the other teams, right? Because there's always other teams out there doing stuff.
Yeah, when I wrote Pandora Squad, I kind of took the vibes from Stargate. Like, the original mandate was to go out into the universe and find tech to defend Earth. So I kind of made a team that got shoved through a portal to go find new alien tech and use it, and they actually were using it themselves. Haven't really developed it far enough yet to get the Stargate vibes going, but that was like the inception was like, let me just play in my own little Stargate sandbox.
And the cool thing with the Stargate, that was the reason officially the government was sending people, but each team had like the science, history, whatever expert, and they're like, no, we're supposed to be exploring. Like, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to explore and understand this ancient culture better. And the military are like, yeah, don't care. And they're just like, we just got to keep it going.
They had a couple of Marine teams that were QRF teams. They were, combat only. You send them, they would get sent in if they had a situation where they had to rescue a team that was in trouble, or if you had to do, more direct combat.
And SG1 wasn't available.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was always fun to see how that played out. But I like the other teams. If I was going to do it, I'd go for Atlantis. I think one of the characters, the lieutenant that was the Marine lieutenant, the black guy played by Rainbow Sun Franks. I can't remember the character's name, but I remember watching it and thinking that character was like criminally underused, and then they just kind of threw him away. He's the one who got infected, and then he was like hooked on the Wraith stuff, and I just thought they could have done so much more with that character. So I might explore that if it was up to me. What about you, Michael?
Yeah, like I said, SG1. But one of the other teams that was going out there, maybe with a little bit more scientific exploration focus, right? Maybe a toned down military, right? I've always enjoyed writing about discovery of stuff.
Yeah.
Combat is fun, but it's not. I don't like gratuitous combat. It should be something that advances the storyline. So I think having them go out there and look for alien tech that we can use to defend Earth. There's so many different ways you could go with that, because there's so many different ways tech can be used.
Yeah, absolutely. And they did that some when they were capturing the alien Goa'uld spaceships, like the pyramid ones. But they didn't do enough of it. I could see wanting to go deeper there. I mean, obviously they had an arms room that had all the staffs in it that they captured.
Yeah.
But
they're best weapons in the world.
You think?
Well, they're horribly inaccurate, right? I mean, even the characters admitted that they're a terror weapon is what they are, right? It's what they use to keep the slaves in line, because that's
shock and awe.
Yeah, shock and awe. It's a great melee weapon, of course.
Also, keep them from, like, if the slaves revolted, don't give them the best accurate weapons. Just give them stuff that's easily overcome.
Yeah. But the funniest weapon, which reading some of the behind the scenes stuff, the Zat gun.
The Zat Nicotel, yeah.
Yeah. The all of the characters, once they read, the rules behind it, right? 1 shot stuns the guy, 2 shots kills the guy, 3 shots disintegrates him. Right. But it begs so many questions of like, okay, so how much time has to elapse between one shot and the next before it resets, right? Or is it just a permanent condition that you now have to carry with you for the rest of your life? If you get shot once, you got to worry about getting
counter.
Yeah, you got to worry about getting shot the second time. I mean, it was cool having a handheld weapon. Everyone thought that was probably one of the weakest points of the show was the logic behind that gun.
Yeah, that gun was not a well thought out one.
Yeah. And of course, it led to one of the funniest scenes, though, is when they went back in time to the 50s, 60s, 70s, whenever, and they're getting interviewed. They get captured and they're getting interrogated, right? And the interrogator holds out the Zat gun. He's like, "What do you call this?" And Richard Dean Anderson's character, O'Neill's, he's like, "Well, that's kind of hard to say." "Oh, because it's classified?" "No, it's just really hard to say."
I remember that episode. I really dug that one. What about you, Nick? Got to unmute first. If you were playing in that universe, what kind of story would you want to tell?
Oh, well, I mean, based on my military background, I'd like to focus on like military aspects. It's kind of one of the reasons why I liked the Makos and Star Trek Enterprise, because that was the more militaristic aspect of space exploration. So I'd probably just go back to the well because that's the shit I'm into. Like I want to go F up some aliens, man.
So SG-1 Ranger Team.
Yeah.
Or SG Ranger Team, I guess. SG-1.
SGR.
SGR.
That's I can't imagine. Like I'm just thinking about it from like a logistics standpoint. Can you imagine who's trying to do the paperwork to like make that all make sense in the rear because they can't really say what's going on? Like,
oh my God, S1 and S4 would lose their minds.
Well, think about this too. If you go through the gate to an alien world, are you going TDY?
Ooh,
what's the paperwork like for that?
What's the per diem for that?
What's the per diem? Exactly. Yeah.
I'm going to Florida. The per diem is like $69 a day.
Yeah.
What's the per diem for some Elseworld bullshit that I had to go through?
Is it a deployment, right?
Can you wear your combat patches if you go there?
Yeah.
You can't acknowledge that you were there.
What if I jump in? Do I get a mustard stain on my airborne wings?
I
want to read that story,
And how far do you have to fall before it counts as a airborne drop? I mean, if the gate is like 10 feet off the ground and you go through and you drop 10 feet, does that count?
500 feet at least. 800 feet is a combat drop. So
okay.
And dropping anything less than 400 feet just is a gravestone marker.
Yeah, or broken legs. It's going to be a lot of casualties. None of them KIA. They're all going to be a bunch of guys with just broken shit.
I'm just imagining all the intestinal parasites they're bringing back from these like medieval societies. And having to
now we're bringing up rangers and intestinal parasites. What about the STDs? Because you're bringing rangers into the mix. They're.
I mean, they had Marines, so they already had that in the plot, right?
Yeah.
Oh Jesus!
Or one of the main characters was the doctor.
Well, yeah, they had their own medical lab, right? I mean, they were getting tested, they were getting brain scanned and everything coming back, so they probably caught that stuff.
This is the 5th STD this week. We're having to figure out how it works.
Right, exactly. It's probably some of the Marines, they're racking up little scores there on the doctor's charts of this is the guy that's brought back the most interesting disease. He's brought back the total number of diseases.
Did you see what happened to Johnny's whacker? Holy moly, it's fallen off.
The funny thing is like the doctors in this show were the equivalent of the red shirts because whenever the aliens got captured and they took them into the medvac or medbay to investigate whatever, it's always the doctors that were getting killed when they escaped.
And that was one of the best emotional scenes in the show was when Terry Rothwell's character got killed.
Yep.
Yeah.
That they really did that one well.
I think so too.
Back in that alternate team situation, that was a very touching moment too. And that was just so interesting.
Some of the behind the scenes were kind of cool too. When they did the SG Stargate Atlantis one, when I forget the girl's name that became she was the one that was part Wraith. Tila, when she was the Wraith Queen, that season that she was the Wraith Queen, she had just given birth, and so all of this, so she was breastfeeding in the trailer on between sets and whatever, and all of the actors and actresses were giving her a hard time about how she was going to scar her baby because it's going to remember looking up, as it's feeding at mom in this like alien vampire-esque costume, and they would always mess with her. And so, like, she had talked about, like, one of the things they would do was slide, like, therapy brochures under her door when she was in her, like, trailer or whatever. Because some of the panels where she would speak at cons about that were filmed and are on YouTube if you go looking for them. And they're just hilarious stories she shares. I imagine she was not laughing at the time. But, yeah, I like that the crew seemed to like each other. You didn't see any of the, like, feuds between anybody, which I thought was kind of cool.
Especially when you have an annoying character like Rodney McKay.
Oh, yeah, that guy was annoying. You wanted to punch him just because. I mean, I get he's a genius, but.
Well, he just played it well. Apparently, he's a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Haven't met him yet. I did get to drink with Paulie McGann at Dragon Con a couple years ago. He was a cool dude. He was just super chill.
Yeah. Did you guys have a favorite culture that they explored or cultural aspect in the series?
One of the more interesting ones that I think they did a really good job concealing it for quite a while was the super advanced aliens that chose to live a simple life in the forest.
Oh, yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Right. I mean, to them, the Goa'uld are just, children with toys, right? I mean, these guys could do anything they wanted, but yet they chose to sit it out, right? Because they had found, I don't know, Nirvana or whatever.
Yeah.
Right. But that was a very, they were interesting because it wasn't just the usual, we've got to save these people from the Goa'uld. It's like, no, actually, you kind of have to save the Goa'uld from these people if they get really mad.
It's like, yeah, we're good. We're good. Y'all just run along now.
We're talking about the Nox, N-O-X,
the
name of the alien race.
Led by everybody's favorite alien actor, Armin Shimmerman.
Yeah.
Quark.
Yeah. I also think the obelisk builders from SGU were kind of unique because we just don't have any answers. It could have been stupid as the three seashells, but because we were left hanging, it's kind of like, where did they come from? How did the obelisk get there? How did they end up with the fully repaired shuttle when, the ones that landed were broken? Like all the questions of the universe that were just left hanging. But I really liked, I don't know if you guys caught the runner culture that the Wraith would have where they would hunt. That's where, I'm trying to blank on Jason Momoa's character was one of the runners.
Ronan.
Yeah, Ronan, where they chip him and then they let him run. And he's used essentially as a lab rat to train warriors to hunt humans. I thought that was kind of cool. And I liked his culture where like they were super like badass warrior types that, fought to the last, and he's the sort of lone survivor.
He ran into some of his associates, and that did not turn out well.
No. It ended up every man for themselves, and loyalty just disappeared. But it's given everything they've been through, I imagine there's levels of trauma and psychosis involved for all those characters that you could explain a lot. Conflicting motivations and whatnot. So, Nick, what was it about? Since you have mostly watched the movie, if you could expound, like when you watch the movie, what part of it would you like to see more of? If you just use the movie as a base to extend outwards.
I think I would have liked to see some more like a follow-up mission. That's what I was kind of hoping they were going to make a sequel. Was that there'd be a follow-up mission because Daniel got left behind. It'd been nice to like revisit that and see kind of like how their whole society changed. Thought that would have been really interesting to me. And obviously you got to add new threats because it's a sequel, right? So different aliens show up or ones from the other gates show up, which would have been awesome. That's something I would like to see explored, which I think was explored in the TV series. I wouldn't know because I didn't really.
Yeah, that's basically what happened in the first 3 or 4 episodes of the season 1.
Yeah, so like I just never got around to watching it on syndication, but now that everything's like streaming, that was like probably the perfect opportunity for me to dive in there and get that experience that I wanted. There's
a whole Pluto channel for it too.
Nice. I do. I do like that. It's kind of wish fulfillment for every nerd that watches those shows, because the nerdy guy is the one that got the hot girl in the end with the original movie, because he married the chieftain's daughter.
Yep.
Which I thought was kind of funny. And I like that they played on the intro where they were interpreting all this. Everyone's like, you guys are crazy. That's not what's... And it turned out the crazy ones were actually right with their conspiracy theory, which was kind of funny. I don't know. It amuses me because some of the conspiracy theories just in the general world are so out there. Like, and you start thinking, well, if some of those were true, like, what would that mean? There's plenty of room for ideas for books and movies and whatnot in those. And I like that they played on that. So, all right, we're going to start with you this time, Terry. Do you have a favorite ship?
I got to say, this is going to surprise you, but I like the Destiny out of Stargate Universe.
Really?
I love that ship. It was absolutely the best thing about that show.
Did you like how it had to refuel by going into the sun?
I did. I like that. I like the fact that it was broken and they kept having problems with it. Such story fodder. I loved all aspects of Destiny.
You did some of that with your last Hunter series.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they were the unexplored stuff. They did that in the first few episodes of Atlantis too, where they were constantly having to explore and it was flooded and the battery was dying. Do you have a favorite, James? Do you have a favorite ship in the universe?
Oh, geez. Probably it would be like the Daedalus class ships, the one where they finally started taking all the alien tech and actually putting it together and using it and really advancing like Earth civilization. I thought that was like finally delivering on the promise of the show and letting them expand beyond like the gate network, like, because they could, feasibly travel back and forth to Atlantis over long periods of time as long as they could dedicate a ship to it. And it let them, like when they got cut off from a gate, they could go actually get them, pick them up, hitch a ride. So I thought it was really cool how they were able to do that. And second runner-up would be the O'Neill, the Asgard ship that they used as bait for the replicators, just because I found that to be immensely hilarious.
Yeah, the
ship of the Asgard fleet, and we're using it as bait.
The other cool human ship was the F-302 fighter interceptors, which were just the fighter ships, the smaller ones. Those were kind of a cool concept. And that was also a mix of the Goa'uld and the little green men that died off and they left all their technology in that trippy episode where it was made his brain too big and he was going to die until they made him stupid again with O'Neill in that one episode where they went to the planet or the chamber that had all the different languages and planets. And
was that the engineers?
The engineers.
Yeah.
The engineer one, the ancients.
What about you, Michael? Do you have a favorite ship in the universe?
So my answer is twofold. From a visual perspective, I think the coolest looking ship is the Ori motherships.
Okay.
There's just something about that ring shape with that giant whatever in the middle. It, from the outside visually, it looked cool. But in terms of overall shipness, I'm going to go with Terry. I like Destiny. I like it. I mean, the ship itself was basically a character of the show.
Mm-hmm.
And that was certainly far. I mean, like you said, they explored a little bit of that in Atlantis, but they didn't take it. They could have taken it a lot farther, and they did that with Destiny. And so that would have been, they had the potential where, who knows, maybe there was an AI on board the ship, and it was, you have to repair it to a certain level, and then all of a sudden the AI wakes up, and now you've got a guide kind of helps you get along, right? Maybe, I don't know if that's something they were thinking of or not, but it certainly would have taken the ship to the next level.
For me, I really liked the Prometheus, which was the first solely human-made ship. It had a really cool look to it. I mean, obviously, I like a lot of them, but I do like the human ships because they were kind of a mix of practicality with aesthetics. Whereas like the Goa'uld, it was just the triangle, like it was just the pyramid, which wasn't as cool to look at. And then some of the other aliens.
I will say the Prometheus made me think of a ship built with Legos.
Yeah.
Yes, I can see that. But I mean, if you're looking at a ship that's the first time humans have done it, like that works for me because they're not. Everyone's learning as they do it, right?
Who cares? We got a ship.
Right. But it was entirely, and it does ask important questions we would consider is that the early ships in the human fleet were all crewed by U.S. Air Force personnel. And would it really be the Air Force flying in space, or would it be the Space Force now that that's existed, or would the U.S. Navy take? Like, it's an interesting thing to think about what branch would take what.
Well, I got to tell you that if it's the Navy, they don't have the experience of doing something in 3D unless you count submarines, and that's not really the same thing. Space Force, no, it's going to be the Air Force.
I mean, the Space Force doesn't really have much of a mission beyond satellites right now because we don't have that kind of technology. But as we develop it, I could see where that becomes the Navy for space.
So
equivalent.
Speaking from a perspective of a guy who was there in the transition from the Air Force to the Space Force, and I am a retired Air Force, and I currently work for the Space Force as a civilian. The Navy couldn't divest themselves fast enough of their space assets because it wasn't a capital ship. That's all they care about. Carriers and submarines, right? That's all they care about. The Air Force, all they care about is their fighters and to a certain extent the stealth bombers. So yes, if an opportunity comes along for a manned ship to Mars or whatever, or maybe just patrolling the Earth Moon environment, it's probably going to be a mix of Air Force and Space Force personnel, simply because the Air Force has the quote pilot experience, even though really talking with some of the guys who have trained in things like that, it's you got to have a completely different mindset. And either you have that 3D kinesthetics where you can think in those 3 dimensions, or you don't. And so it could end up being a mix of both.
Yeah, the other question that's interesting is, would the Coast Guard get to play some sort of role? Because they do buoy tending, so satellite tending could be within the realm. And if we've got spaceships, at some point in time, civilian ships are going to be out there.
Yeah, that would be a neat thing if we had a space guard. Kind of like the Coast Guard to do rescues.
And I could see them, because at a certain point in time, if you get enough traffic up there, you're going to need satellites to mark paths almost, so you can kind of control traffic and avoid collisions.
Well, we're already doing that now.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then someone's got to tend those. And I know buoy tending, like I said, is a Coast Guard mission. But that's a fun thing to think about when you look at all these intergalactic newborn society, because you get to watch humanity go into space instead of it starting with them already in it, which I kind of like.
I'm sure the Bowman astronauts who are stranded would love to have a space guard right about now.
Yes, they would. And the Space Force actually announced one of the Space Force officers is going to go up as part of one of those missions.
Colonel Nick Hague. Yep.
So that'll be interesting to they get to do something cool for once. So,
see, he was Air Force and then he became Space Force.
So, and then if the original Marine Corps was protection on ships, would they send Marines on the Air Force ships to provide security? Would they pour the Army because the Army and the Air Force had that relationship where they work together, or would they start something new like a Space Force ground or combat forces kind of thing to see who would do that?
If we ever get to the point where you need that many personnel on board a ship, I would imagine it would be the Marines, right? That's their role. Not to mention, hey, we got to send a sacrificial goat out the airlock to draw fire. Yeah, Marine private's best for that.
Okay.
As long as the Air Force is in charge of the cafeteria, I think we're golden.
Yeah. Some things are eternal. So yep. I did like the episodes in the beginning of the SGU where they were talking about the beta sites, where all the politicians had this one home away from home to make sure they were safe if shit hits the fan, because that was the most human thing I've ever seen on that series, because that's going to happen. Where they're like, screw you, we're going to take our ball and go to another planet.
Yeah.
So, yep. All right, so we are close to the hour mark, and I know there's a lot more we could cover, but since this was our first episode on the topic and it was more broad-ranging, is there anything you guys wanted to talk about the series that you loved so much?
Bring it back.
Yes, yeah. Second that.
more.
Yeah.
I like the expanded lore with like the comics, and I understand there's some novels out there. I haven't read them because I haven't been able to find copies of them, but I know there are novels written in the space Stargate world, the larger universe. Do you have some of them, Terry?
I don't have some of them, but I have the role-playing game that I supported the Kickstarter for somewhere here on my shelf.
How is that game?
I played it a couple of times. It seems pretty good.
Is it a D20 system? Here, I'm going to put you on the solo screen so people can see it.
I wish this light wasn't that way. There we go. Now I can see it.
Oh, that looks kind of cool.
That's
I like
nice.
the art.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Is it a D20 system or what's it based off of?
I honestly don't know. I've looked at it, but I haven't played it. I
When you
cannot
hear
say.
some people collect the books and they never get around to playing it. That Terry's one of those.
When I was young and playing everything all the time when I was in the Army, I didn't have any money to buy anything. And now that I'm a successful author, I buy things that I probably will never play because I can.
And this is the way. This is the way you do it.
It is.
Is it for sale anywhere, or was it only for the Kickstarter? Because
I'm sure it's for sale.
I'll have to check that out. I definitely want to do more in the universe because I absolutely love it. I've got my kids introducing it. Though, fair warning, if you want to buy the box set like I did for SG1 and you think it was on the TV in the 90s, it's okay. The first made-for-TV movie that they show where they introduced the SG1 series, full frontal on the lady getting out of the sarcophagus, and I was not expecting that, so I didn't have the remote handy to like block it.
Yeah, no, the
And of
first
course he
season
goes-
was actually on Cinemax.
Right, and then he goes and tells mommy, "Look what Daddy let me watch." I'm like, "Oh my goodness!" So fair warning on the box set version that did not go on TV.
He said, this thing here says it's a highly adapted 5th edition D20 rule set to fit modern sci-fi fantasy settings.
Nice. Okay. I think the concept of Stargates lends itself to homebrews as well.
I did a homebrew back after it came out because I wanted to play it. I just made it all up as I went. I called it SG2, and I just picked the other team, and we ran with that for a while.
Did you like it?
I did.
Nice. So obviously with that out of the way, Jason. I started with a J, all right? It's late.
So close
In that not really kind of way. Pittman, what are you working on right now? And then how can listeners find you?
So I'm working on the 3rd Felix Chance book right now. I'm working on the 2nd Pandora Squad. I'm working on a kind of a suspense thriller right now, and I'm in talks for doing some other stuff that I can't talk about quite yet. But I just this past summer released the first audiobook in the Felix Chance series, and if you are a Stargate Universe fan, sorry Terry, Eli himself, David Blue, does the voice of Felix, and he is perfection. So if you need an Eli fix, go listen to David play Felix. You can find me on the interwebs at halfacrepond.com, on Facebook at JE Pittman Writes, and Instagram at j.e.pittman.
And all of that will be linked in the show notes. All right, what about you, Michael? What are you working on now, and how can they find you?
Okay, so right now I'm working on book 1 of my Car Wars trilogy to be published by Three Ravens. It should be out. Well, I'm in final stages now, so hopefully here in a few months. And then I'm also doing my outlining and planning for my 2nd book in the Four Horsemen universe to follow up Thicker Than Water, especially that extra special epilogue that got everyone really fired up. So been working with Kevin Eikenberry to develop some ideas on that. You can find me on Facebook, both under Michael Morton and then my fan group, Mike's Adventure Gateway. And all my books are available on Amazon, to include my anthologies that I'm in.
So with your Car Wars one, is that, like, I know David Hensley wrote a Car Wars book and William Joseph Roberts did. Are all of your books tied in, or you just share the universe?
No, so there's a little bit of both going on. But yeah, the main storyline is a huge rally that's going on all across the country. So everybody who's participating in that, they pick a different city to start in. But the key thing is everybody is going to end up in Sturgis at the end of their legs of the race. So we're all converging on one area. My guys are starting in Denver. We're taking a roundabout route through Desiree, which is Utah, and then up into Idaho, across Montana, and then drop down into Sturgis. So it's a huge rally called Dead Men's Rally, $10 million prize. So you can imagine the pucker factor is pretty tight for all the teams competing.
Nice. All right, and last but certainly not least, Terry, what are you working on right now, and then how can listeners find you?
Well, first of all, Michael, I'm also a published author with the Four Horsemen universe. I've written 10 short stories for their anthologies. So,
yeah, I've seen your name.
Yeah, I hang around. You can't stop me. I just seep in everywhere. That's the way it works. I'm writing book 16 of the Last Hunter series. The last book in the series, gonna wrap that sucker up. Need to turn it in early next month, so gotta end the sucker with a bang. Then I get to start something new. 3 years of writing one series, whew, that's tough. I'm ready to move on.
Okay. Yeah, I only had 2 in the Four Horsemen universe. I'm not as cool as Terry.
You've never been as cool as me.
One day, when I hit 80 just like you are, I could be as cool.
Yeah. You're just lucky to know your balls have finally dropped.
All right. So, Nick, we haven't asked you in a while. So what comic are you working on right now?
Jesus Christ. I don't even know anymore, man. There's so many things going on. We're still working on Quickwire, our speedster. That's being colored right now. I'm overseeing the production of Phantom Hawk Resolute, which we're about 6 pages deep now. We just got the trade paperback proof of Bengali Volume 1. Turned out awesome. I got it right here. Turned out really good. We've got to make a few changes, but other than that, it should be good to go. And then 2 to 3
Nick,
weeks,
hold that
it's
up.
already available for...
Nick,
Sorry.
hold it up. I just got the solo. Okay. Oh, that's cool.
Sweet.
So the artwork's really crisp. I really like what the printers did. I don't know what kind of coating they used on there, but all the colors are really just kind of popping out. So it's really vibrant. Really dig it. So that's what I got going. I'm also currently drawing Corvid and Sparrow issue 1. And then once that's done, the issue 1s for the company will be done. And we're going to consolidate because there's just like 3 of us making this stuff. We're going to consolidate to like 1 or 2 actual titles, and everyone else will just have guest appearances, or there'll be some one-offs from here on out. So
nice. All right. And you can find us, dear listener, on our Linktree, linktr.ee, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast. Again, Linktree/Blasters and Blades Podcast, where we link to all the things: the BitChutes, the Rumble, the YouTube, the TikToks, the Twitters, our Blasters and Blades Facebook group and Facebook page. We have our email, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com. Again, blastersandbladespodcast@gmail.com for professional purposes only, people. Yes, we are looking at you, Terry. No more of those insults. And if you want to send the shenanigans, send them Madam Stabby Stab over there on the Instagram, Twitter, and email. We need to get her on another episode, Nick, so we have proof of life. People are starting to wonder if she's like buried in your backyard. And you can
just go on her Twitter, man.
She gets mad at me because I steal the memes before she has a chance to post them, and I post them on our podcast Twitter. She sent me some nasty gram messages about that. And our
motherfucker.
She's speaking of our website, you can go there through the link tree. It's a bunch of gobbledygook, but if you click it on the link tree and you go there, you can support the show for as little as 99 cents a month. You can help keep the lights on. And every penny counts, especially with StreamYard's yeeting the prices to the heavens on us. So we're going to have to look soon for potentially another recording program. You can support the show more directly over at buymeacoffee.com/author JR Handley. Again, buymeacoffee.com/author JR Handley. Be sure to put in the comment section that is for the podcast. And I promise I will keep my co-hosts duly caffeinated. They will drink until it sweats out of their pores. And then we will film it and laugh at them. And if you want to support the show, you can also go to Coffee Brand Coffee. Use the code PodcastGrunts. Links in the comments. You get 10% off. We get a little bit of a kickback. It's a win-win. Their coffee's good. Although Stabby and I did make the mistake of becoming users of our own product, and so we probably spend more money there than any of the other listeners, but it's cool because I tell myself it's a tax write-off, even though I
never get high on your own supply.
Like, you didn't tell me that before I started ordering, all right? And that's s'mores coffee.
Dude, that's common knowledge from like 1979.
All right, apparently I wasn't hanging out with the cool kids. I didn't know this.
Oh, he's such an innocent.
Anyway, thank you for spending some of your precious time with us. For my crazy co-host, I am J.R. Handley, and this was the Blasters and Blades podcast. We'll be back next week at the same time, where we'll indulge our love of nerd culture, cheesy jokes, and all things that go boom. Thank you guys for coming out. This was fun. We have plenty of offshoot episodes we could cover on the various franchises that make this up, and any of the derivatives that come from the base ideas. So we'll have to do those too. If you've got ideas, dear listener, send them our way. We'd love to host them, and maybe I can pester the guest to come back for another episode. Terry might be a little harder. I shouldn't have sent him that hate mail, but everyone else likes
No. The worst thing was the nudies. You should not have sent me those. You shouldn't send those to anybody.
Yeah, because you got him excited.
That was a wide open
Oh,
shot.
yes, win.
Well, so this
like,
is the thing
wow.
that the civilians
I
don't
didn't know you were
always
that flexible.
understand. Because if Terry was ever nice to me, I would think he was mad at me and plotting against me. If he was actually nice, the fact that he's mean to me is how I know he really loves me.
It's the military way.
It is. Was it like that when you worked at NASA? Did you guys give each other shit, or was it like professional and stuff?
No, it was way too professional. There wasn't nearly enough shenanigans.
That's disappointing.
Nobody's doing the Batwing at NASA? I'm disappointed.
Terry was in a special division that helped fake the moon landing, so his was a little on the offshoots of NASA.
No, that's the mainstream NASA. That's everything.
Man, I feel like my
That's
whole
the
life.
core mission right there, baby.
I feel like my whole life
Make
has
it
been
till
a
you
lie.
make it.
All right, and with that, we're going to hit the end button. Wait